Welcome to our flipped classroom, where math knowledge makes things easier. Today we'll be learning operation properties. There are 5 videos in this series. This is the second of 5 videos. So after viewing this video, you should have completed 2/5 of the videos in this series, hence our fraction, 2/5. We'll be focused on the Common Core Curriculum content standards associated with the number system, specifically the 7th grade standards, 7NSA1D, in which we'll apply properties of operations as strategies to add and subtract rational numbers, and 7NSA2C, in which we'll apply properties of operations as strategies to multiply and divide rational numbers. Our first video involved the commutative property. Our second operation property is the associative property. The associative property teaches that you can use parentheses to group or associate numbers together in any order when you add or multiply, and the results will be the same. Well, let's look at just the associative property of addition right now. We'll use variables to represent numbers. These 3 numbers, we'll call them A, B, and C. When you're adding A, B, and C, it shouldn't matter whether you add B and C first and then A, or if you add A and B first and then C, the results should be the same. Let's look at some numerals as an example. If we were to add 7 plus -2 plus 3, it shouldn't matter in what order we add them. Let's first add -2 plus 3. If we start at -2 on our number line and we add 3, 1, 2, 3, we'll end up at 1. -2 plus 3 is +1. Now we'll add that first number 7. So 1 plus 7, at 1 we'll add 1, add 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 will end up at 8. Well, what if we wanted to add the first 2 numbers? If we wanted to start at 7 and add a -2, and we learned before that when you're adding a negative number, it's the same as subtracting. Positive and a negative, we could change that to a negative. So 7 minus 2 will bring us to 5. And then we add that third number 3. So 5 plus 3, 1, 2, 3, brings us back to 8. So we see it doesn't matter in what order we add numbers together. If we're adding a group of numbers, we could add them in any order. We could group them in different ways and still get the same answer. What about the associative property of multiplication? Well, it says basically the same thing. When you're multiplying numbers together, in this case we'll use the variables A, B, and C to represent the 3 numbers that we're multiplying. If we're multiplying A times B times C, it doesn't matter whether we first multiply B times C. If we group B times C first, we associate those 2 numbers first and then add A. Or if we multiply the first 2 numbers together and then add the third number, A times B, and then multiply C, we should get the same results. Let's use numerals to represent this. We have 7 times -2 times 3. Well, let's first associate -2 and 3. We'll first group -2 times 3. Remember, a negative times a positive will give us a negative answer. 2 times 3 is 6. So -2 times 3 will give us -6. And -6 times that first number, 7. Negative times a positive will give us a negative. -6 times +7 will give us a -42. What if we first multiplied the first 2 numbers, 7 and -2? Well, 7 times -2, positive times a negative will give us a negative, and 7 times -2 will give us a -14. And -14 times that next number, which was a 3, -14 times a +3. Negative times a positive will give us a negative. -14 times 3 is -42. So we see the associative property of multiplication in action here. When multiplying numbers together, it doesn't matter what order you group them or what order you associate them, the results are going to be the same. So what we learned today is the associative property of addition and the associative property of multiplication. When you're adding a group of numbers, it doesn't matter in what order you add them. And when multiplying a group of numbers, it doesn't matter in what order you multiply them. The results will be the same.